Hello and welcome back to Genshin Impact. My name's Felt, and today we're going to be doing a super quick and dirty video on why I think you should buy Kazuha before he goes away in 3 days at the time of this video airing. I know this is kind of late, but I wanted to get all my thoughts in order on this video before I managed to put it out there into the world. Now let's start with the biggest draws of Kazuha. If you never got Venti because you started playing after he came out, he is a 5-star Anemo unit who does amazing at grouping up enemies. Now you might be thinking, Sucrose does the same thing. Yes, but Sucrose gives different buffs to a party. So let's start by comparing Kazuha to Venti. They're completely different. You can't. They both are amazing Viridescent Venerer users, but they give different party buffs. He's much more closely related to Sucrose, but I believe he has a different utility. So let's start by talking about the most important talent that I think separates him from the other Anemo support sub-DPS units, is Poetics of Fubutsu. Upon triggering a swirl reaction, he will grant the entire party member an elemental damage bonus, a percentage of elemental damage bonus, to the element absorbed for every point of elemental mastery he has. So at my current elemental mastery of 677, he gives an extra 21.7% damage increase. And I don't even have full elemental mastery built. I could add another 187 by swapping out my my goblet here for an elemental mastery goblet, giving people an even bigger boost. If I had a better weapon that had more elemental mastery on it, say his 5-star, I could get even more elemental mastery to give a bigger damage boost. And you might be thinking, isn't that exactly what Sucrose does? No. No, it's not. If we go and read her talent, her version of the talent is, when she hits an enemy with one of her 2 abilities, you increase the party member's elemental mastery by 20% of Sucrose's. You might be like, isn't that the same thing? No, not at all. Because different elemental reactions get boosted by elemental mastery differently. Stuff like Vaporize and Melt work very well, Vaporize especially works very well with elemental mastery, but then stuff like Superconduct and Electrocharged don't do as much with it. So in general, I find that for using Electro teams, Kazuha is an amazing enabler, and I think he fits a lot of them better than Sucrose. I'd be like, wait a minute. Doesn't that say that's 400% based on his mastery and that's only 90%? Yeah, but Vaporize and Melt give more damage based on the way their reaction works, which is why this number is so much lower than this one. It's a bit of a confusing thing, and I don't have time to go into it in this video, but the bottom line is, Kazuha is much better of a support at helping out Electro units than other elements, in my opinion. I think he's amazing at doing that, but I think he also stands very much on his own as a solid DPS unit, which is why I have him with an Anemo damage goblet, because he still deals Anemo damage, even when he's infusing stuff with Summon Swordsmanship, which is, if his ability that groups people together comes in contact with an element, it will deal 200% of the element type as damage, additionally. But he still deals his original Anemo damage as damage. So I think that Kazuha is an amazing unit who's also very, very available with different levels of investment. Say you get him, and you only like, I need a supportive Anemo unit besides Sucrose, because I want a second one for my other Abyss team. Or I have Venti, but I want a second unit for my other Abyss team to help group up enemies and shred their protections by using Viridescent Venerer, which he applies very well. In fact, because of the way his talent works, he's boosting everyone's damage while reducing their elemental resistances. So he is double buffing the party at the same time. Now I know Sucrose does the exact same thing, but he buffs a different aspect of the party. He doesn't straight buff elemental mastery, he buffs up their elemental damage percent, which, in my opinion, is a little harder to come by, because even like my Tartaglia here, who does amazing, has 80% of this. 80% Hydro bonus damage. I add another 21% on that, he's past doubling his Hydro damage. A 20% increase can be huge, and this is with a Kazuha who isn't purely about being a support, which is why I think he works so great at different levels of investment. I've invested heavily into him being a solid sub-DPS, but not giving him a ton of damage-based stats. For example, I still have him on a Elemental Mastery had as opposed to crit rate. So I could probably boost his personal damage more, but because I love the way he works in the Tartaglia, Zhongling, Bennett team, where he is just an enabler to boost the damage of Tartaglia and Zhongling by a massive amount, I think he works much better with his current setup. But he is also a very free-to-play friendly person. The Iron Sting, which is a craftable sword, is one of his best weapons. It has Elemental Mastery as its base thing. He can increase his elemental damage by dealing elemental damage. It's insane. And then on top of that, he just needs a 4-piece Viridescent Venerer to do the most amount. But because of the way that he scales, you can get by using a 2-piece Wanderer's Troop. So say your luck is really strange, and you happen to get an Elemental Mastery top hat here, and then you got a Wanderer's String Kettle Goblet that had Elemental Mastery on it as well. So you have 2 Elemental Mastery pieces plus another 80 Elemental Mastery on it. You're boosting the amount of ways he can buff your party, so he can work at lower investments with solid 2 pieces. You start investing a little bit heavier and get him to have a 4-piece Venerer, he's now shredding protections. Or elemental resistances is the way this game phrases it, I apologize. But all of these things combined, I feel make him into a very powerful unit, and he also pairs very well with a unit like Child. Now, Child likes to melee attack in close range and can only hit stuff on the ground in front of him. If you're using Venti, the enemies are up in the air, and Child cannot do near as much damage to them. If you're using Sucrose, they're all getting flung up and down in the air, and Child will sometimes miss his attacks. Whereas Kazuha, he sucks them into a finite point, right there in the middle of that swirl, which lets someone like Child hit all of them simultaneously with Riptide for massive damage. Or in the case of Zhongling, you can throw down a Goba, and she hits all of them at once with a massive burst of pyro damage. Or the same with Bennett, he can swing his sword or drop his burst. I think this team in particular, with Tartaglia, Zhongling, and Bennett, is by far one of Kazuha's best teams, and I think he pairs super well with them. But he also pairs very well with a team called the Fireworks team, or what a lot of people call the Fireworks team, where it is Tartaglia, but then your last 2 units are Beidou and Fischl. And between Fischl's Oz constantly applying electro damage and being able to use Beidou's burst to apply more electro damage, you were just swinging constantly with electro charged, using the power of Beidou and Fischl to apply tons of electro damage. Kazuha can boost their electro damage, and then you can swap to Tartaglia so that he can just apply the Hydro to make their electro damage more powerful, and he can have reduced their resistances to said electro damage. I think he fulfills a very specific niche in this game. I don't think he's a Venti where he groups up the whole world. I don't think he's a Sucrose where he gives everyone elemental mastery. But I think Kazuha fits right in the middle of being able to boost elemental damage amounts, as well as take away their protections, to boost elements like Electro to their highest potential. But he can also pair very well with Vaporize comps to boost their damage just as high. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching and hanging out. Go buy Primos and get Kazuha, if you really think that I changed your mind. Now, thanks for watching. You're great. Hope to catch you next time.